The NCAA house case has been, I guess, technically approved and moderated over the last, within this past week, which now gives players the option or teams the option for TV revenue share across the board to college athletes. I guess with all this being done, what are your thoughts? And I'll start with you on this. What are your thoughts on this case being done and finalized and TV revenue share being a thing?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, immensely complicated situation here. We are I don't even think we can necessarily really fathom the way that college football is going to change because of the ability for schools to now share revenue with players, the cap that's been created, and then more importantly, that $20 million number which teams can go up to pay their players, they can still exceed it with donations, with NIL, with collectives paying players. So there is an opportunity for a lot of money being funneled in to guys. I'm happy that we've gotten to this point. I think the NCAA is really stupid for still trying to find a way to avoid making them employees and still declaring an amateurism, which is insane to me. But from the player perspective, before I talk a little bit about the team stuff, Blake, I'm just glad that we now have at least a little bit of footing. I think that right now we have a foundation to create more consistency with the transfer portal and a little bit less messiness with NIL. And I know that sounds really optimistic, and I know that you're probably going to shoot that down, but I think this moment we're in a better position than we were this time last year.
I just, Joe, look, I hate to continue to vehemently disagree with you on this. Do I agree with you? See, here's what I think that you're doing, and I think it's the right thing to do. Does the logic behind saying that we have footing with this case being in? Yes, I fully agree with that. However, the issue with that, okay, is this for me. It's not going to stop tampering. It's not going to stop the portal. It's not going to stop NIL opportunities because NIL won't stop. Now, will collectives be a thing in 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it's not going to stop a booster and a head coach calling said booster and saying, hey, I need $500,000 to go get 2 kids. It's not going to stop that. So what I think people are trying to say is maybe it'll stop majority of kids because they're making a lot of money from going places. But the problem I have with that is I don't think that this is any footing in reference to what everybody is complaining about, right? Joe, what is everybody complaining about? NIL and the portal, right?
Well, so, more specifically, tampering and kids leaving after a short period.
Well, not even that. I mean, like high school players, like, Chad Simmons came out and said the number 1 player in 2026 who might reclassify, and Jakeem Stewart is already having conversations about 7-figure deals. I mean, like, this isn't like that's what people are wanting to stop, right? That's what people are getting aggravated about. I don't see a solution in this house case that stops that. Right, like that's the complaints that we have, right? Like TV revenue share, like, look, you'll figure all that out, right? I think that there are a lot of very smart people that can figure that out. But there are 2 big things that I have an issue with. One I just discussed, but here's number 2. Everybody continues to tell me that I'm wrong, but until I see this be lifted or something happen, I don't know. Joe, Title IX is still a thing.
The Title IX aspect of this is going to get complicated. And what's kind of been thrown out there is that some of these administrators, and I don't think this is going to work, but some of these administrators are saying it refers to equality and opportunity and not in payment, because their argument is we can't pass off college football players their share of money. We can't just pass that on to somebody else if it's not their money
that's what
that they earn.
Doing.
Well, that's the whole point with this, and I think that we're going to see a real serious restructure in college football.
But Title IX is not in reference to revenue, correct? I have heard what people are trying to say. It's about fair and opportunity. That's why you have to have an equal number of sports, male and female. right? Like they have separated the fairness or what they believe to be equality, correct?
Yeah, and this is why I think that there's this pitch to shift changing the roster sizes so that more scholarships are going to go to other sports. So the rosters are going to probably get smaller for football. There might be more walk-ons. There might be an elimination of walk-ons. Scholarships for football is probably going to go down so that they could end up evening this out in one way or another.
That is the stupidest thing that they could ever do. Hey, here's a novel decision. You ready?
Yeah.
I got it. You ready? Cut the sports that aren't generating male or female. Let the schools decide.
Well, they should just turn them into club sport. Like it should be like a D1 club sport.
That's my point. If the school doesn't, and I'm going to say multiple of these sports, if let's just say Notre Dame, LSU, okay, the two schools that we root for, okay, and I'm not Notre Dame because he's got the Go Tigers hat on. It's actually flip flop here for people who are.
You are a Notre Dame fan. Go Irish, right?
No, I hope
I'm gonna clip that.
Okay. But my point, you get my hey, how about this? Forget it. The equality means nothing. Here's what the truth was about all of this and why everybody just lost. Equality just lost in court. Equality lost in court in the sense of you have been giving millions, hundreds of millions, worldwide or nationwide, I should say, hundreds of millions of dollars a year to other sports that don't generate money because of on the back of one sport.
Right.
It's time to pay the penance. The bottom line for me is if you want all of this to work, women's golf, women's tennis, men's golf, men's tennis. Okay, if those are the sports, hypothetically, just throwing that out there, not saying, there's a reason, Joe, that we call track and field Olympic sports.
Yeah.
Okay, like club level sports have not been bad for most programs. All I am saying is, okay, the bottom line is give the schools the authority to cut these sports because what is the country telling you?
I think that they do have the what
you're saying is they don't have the authority.
Oh, you're saying that there would be no restriction with Title IX.
I'm proposing giving schools lift Title IX when it comes because it is of my opinion. Now, women, okay, that hear this would say, well, Blake is a bigot. I'm not a bigot because women's basketball is kicking the dog shit out of men's basketball right now from a viewership standpoint, right?
Right. They would still remain.
Hold on one second. It's kicking its ass in NIL. Livy Dunn, Angel Reese, name whoever, the Cavender twins, they are beating the dog shit out of men's sports. Why? Because more people want to view it and watch it. The bottom line is let's have fair equality in reference to capitalism. That's what gets missed in all of this. Why is it, Joe, that the 85 scholarship players on your football team should be responsible for all the other club sports?
Well, that's where now I think that, and I think a lot of administrators agree with what you're talking about, where the football players have earned all this money. It has funded all these country club sports, men's and women's, that really should not have been getting that funding. And now that money has to go directly to the football programs, any basketball teams that were making that much money, any women's basketball teams that were making that much money will get those funds. I do, not to direct the conversation backward too much. I want to come back to, though, what you said earlier in talking about how this isn't going to change NIL. That's very true. That's absolutely true. But I think that what's now important that there is going to be this settlement is an effort to get legislation in place, right? With the ability to get legislation.
They hope it is, but yes, right. I agree. Right.
That to me is going to help push forward. One of the things that I have screamed about that we've disagreed on is the ability for the NCAA to put in restrictions and to put in guidelines of saying,
okay, can I raise my hand? What restrictions?
I'm talking about one of the things that's been discussed is that NIL is going to be a lot more closely investigated, that it has to have a proven some sort of proven marketing impact. So if the Ohio State collective signs a kid, a booster owns a local car dealership and signs the kid, he needs to actively fulfill his contract and do those things so that there just aren't players who are getting money handed to them.
All right, well, let me stop right there. You can't do that.
Yes, he can.
No, you cannot.
Why can't they?
Because the O'Bannon case legitimately ruled on that. And what I've been saying from the very beginning, which nobody will listen to, legitimately, the O'Bannon case in the memo says when it comes to name, image, and likeness, if two parties are enacted, contracts supersede. The issue is that there was no contract in the NCAA football game. Joe, if I break my contract with an employer, can they fire me? Sure. It is a capitalistic thing. If I or you go into an NIL deal, it's absolutely pissing outside. So if I go bye-bye, it's not because I'm mad at you. It's because the weather. Of course, the day it doesn't rain at all, and then the day I come back, it's pissing cats and dogs outside.
Right.
But you can't do that, because if I'm giving a player money and I don't feel like he's in a breach of contract and I do nothing about it, Joe, somebody's going to take that to court and is going to win.
Obviously that there's going to be. Okay, so this is another thing too that gets brought up with this, is that a lot of the wording in this stuff. Look, the biggest winner is the lawyers. It's always the lawyers. They're trying to set this up so that they can have more cases to defend in the future. So I completely agree with what you're saying, that yes, there's going to be more lawsuits. But
now, can you stop collectives? If you would have came into this argument and said, Blake, we need legislation that collectives cannot be a thing.
I don't think collectives are that bad. I think
unregulated
and unmarketed. I know that there's some really, really bad ones, but the ones that are unregulated, that there's no attention paid to them or monitoring and making sure that they're doing appropriate and real business. That's what gets missed here. People think it's just a fund you put money in and then it spits out players. That's not what a collective's supposed to be. It's supposed to be money going in order to pay players to do marketing opportunities, to market things in the local community. That's what the purpose of it is.
Fair, but it's not what but here's the thing though. When you donate, because you're donating, the school technically is a nonprofit, owns that money.
Well, you're not doing. There's a difference between donating to a collective and donating to a school. School's technically not related to the collective.
Donating to a collective. I'm going too far into the weeds. Yeah. My only point in this is I get what they're trying to do. And the truth is, I back them on probably 90% of what they're saying. Actually, I agree. Like, hey, let's find legislation. The problem is that every time that you come up with a solution, Joe, easily anybody with a legal background can literally legitimately look at this and say, you can't do that. Joe, I don't have, I'm not Johnny Cochran on the stand. If the glove doesn't fit, you must have quit. But I have enough to know in my past and background that, Joe, we can sit here and debate. But these are like, for example, all these cases going in front of the NCAA is losing. You think that if somebody says, hey, or the NCAA comes down and says, hey, we're investigating because this kid didn't market the way that we liked, it's your own perception. Like,
I will agree with this, though. There's a lot of, it's subjective. There's a lot of ambiguity in how things can be perceived. I totally agree with that. That's what's going to lead to problems.
To the spirit of what I was trying to say, what I was trying to end with is this. Call it NIL, call it Bourbon Street hot dog water for all I care. The legitimate thing of what people are complaining about is that now that it's out in the open, that boosters are paying for players to come to their school. That's what they want to stop. That's completely out there. Well, okay, if you hide it, it's just going to go back to the same way it was, but it's never going to go back to the way that it was. You cannot stop a booster in today's world now that the O'Bannon case is over, unless, there's no way I can see this happening, the Ed O'Bannon case goes back in front of the Supreme Court and we have some kind of legislation that happens there. Now, the final thing, at least that I will say with this, I am glad that football players are finally getting paid their worth.
Yeah. I
Okay?
mean, that's the biggest piece is that, and I let in with that. I am so glad that these kids are getting their money now.
Now,
Okay, where is this going?
I bet you, because I'm not going to bet the show this. There's too many people that watch this. I bet you every single dollar in my savings account that TV contracts start going down or leveling out. They're going to. And you know what?
No, they're going to go up.
No,
What?
Ross Dellinger reporting that that the SEC discussing now moving to 9 games. Okay, and in this piece, he talks about there being some like a 10-year contract. So you know how the NFL has a union where the contract stays the same for about 5 to 7 to 10 years, right? I think that they're about now that they have to pay players. Watch this shit start leveling out.
I don't agree with that at all. I think that
I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but look, I don't mean this in the wrong way. Greg Sankey's spoon feeding this to Ross, and Ross is spitting this out on Twitter, which, quite honestly, how can you say that Ross is wrong here?
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're pushing, but through multiple layers of addition here, there's multiple waves that this is going to happen. Revenue starts to get shared now, players start to get paid more. The product on the field is going to get increasingly better because there's going to be parity amongst the top programs, only the top. We're not talking about Indiana suddenly becoming a powerhouse out of nowhere unless Saudi Arabia starts funding them or something like that, which would be kind of hilarious, but also disturbing. But my point is that there's going to be parity at the top. And I think that there's going to be a lot of really good football teams leading to more eyes, more attention, the video games coming back. Sports betting in college sports is going to become increasingly more prevalent. That is something that's around the corner that we're probably going to start seeing sponsorships with these sports books, with universities, and with conferences. I think that the growth for college football is going to be rapid. Even we are, as fans, acknowledge that this sport is big. But for the average NFL fan or just the average Joe Schmo that puts the game on when it's the national championship, I think more people are going to be tapped in and tuning in than in the past.
We'll see.
Make sure you check out Bet Online for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts.